Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Conversations from Quarantine number 2, with the focus today, how the stimulus bill affects SSI and more. And we're happy to have you with us today. My name is Mike Murata. I am the director of the Assistive Technology Advocacy Center at Disability Rights New Jersey, and I will be our facilitator for the afternoon as we go through. Just some quick housekeeping. I threatened it before we started, and I'll do it again. Now everybody's got to hear it one more time. You are able to participate through the chat window. So if you search along the bottom of your screen, you'll find the ability to open up the chat and type things in. For people who have joined us on the phone, I know the chat gets to be virtually impossible on the phone. So what we'll do is, as we open up the floor for questions, we'll also have the ability for people to turn their microphone on and ask their questions. We're just asking people for now, in this beginning part of the presentation, to just keep your microphones on mute until we open up for the conversation from the group. So again, welcome. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you, Mike. My name is Lisette Nelson. I am a managing attorney at Disability Rights New Jersey, and I'm also the coordinator for our program for protection and advocacy for individuals with mental illness. And my co-host today is Heather Sims, who's the Deputy Director of Peer Advocacy and Community Initiatives at CSPNJ, and she's also the chair of our Payee Advisory Council, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a minute. So welcome, everybody. We're very happy to have you join us today for our second conversation from quarantine.
No, but you're laughing. That's why I can't. You know, I'm gonna hang up because you're supposed to. And you're there laughing. You're there.
I'm sorry. If you're not speaking, can you please mute your mics? Thank you. So just to give you a little bit of background about Disability Rights New Jersey, we're what is called the Protection and Advocacy Organization for the state of New Jersey. So we advocate for the rights of people with all types of disabilities all throughout New Jersey. In addition to advocating to advance the human, civil, and legal rights of citizens in New Jersey with disabilities, we also do public awareness promotion, outreach events. We advise and assist people with disabilities, their family members, attorneys, guardians, in obtaining protection of their rights. And we do a lot of education and trainings and outreach to many different groups across the state. So we'll tell you a little bit later about how you can contact us if you have an individual issue that you would like to address with Disability Rights New Jersey. Today, we're going to be addressing a general topic that seems to be of great interest, and so we're going to try and stick to that today. But if you have other issues that you would like to have somebody talk to you about, we're going to give you our intake number at the end of this presentation. So I'm going to let Heather say a few words about our Payee Advisory Council, and then we'll move into the presentation of the speakers and the topic. Go ahead, Heather.
Thank you, Lisette. The purpose of the Payee Advisory Council is to advise the system on policies and priorities to be carried out in protecting and advocating for the rights of individuals with mental illness. This council is made up of people who have received or are receiving mental health services, family members of people who have received services, attorneys, mental health professionals, people who are knowledgeable about mental illness and have demonstrated a substantial commitment to improving mental health, and also a provider of mental health services. For anyone that's interested in learning more about the Payee Advisory Council with Disability Rights New Jersey, can visit their website, and I believe that is posted throughout this webinar as well. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Heather. We have today joining us, first off, we have a website that we have created in response to the COVID crisis. We know that there are many, many issues that people have concerns about and questions about. And so you can find us on the website for Disability Rights New Jersey. And there's a lot of resource materials there and links to various types of services. And you can see on this page that we've identified frequently asked question sheets that we have on there, including one on the issue that we're talking about today, the economic stimulus. So if you're looking for specific information after this, you can go there and just click on that fax link and you'll get to those. So if you want to look at that, and there's lots of other information that may be of interest if you're there as well. So as I was saying, our co-presenters today are from Community Health Law Project, and we're very happy to welcome them. And I'm going to first introduce Erica Kerber, who's their Director of Litigation, and she'll tell you about services they provide, and then we'll move into the presentation. Go ahead, Erica.
And thank you for having us today. My name is Erica Kerber. As Lisette mentioned, I'm the Director of Litigation at the Community Health Law Project. We also have with us, I'm happy to say, two very experienced staff persons from the Law Project, Dan Farrell, a supervising advocate in our Collingswood office, as well as Rachel Ioneri, a senior staff attorney in the Collingswood office. They're very well versed in this area of stimulus payments, and we are thrilled that they're here today. In terms of what the Law Project does, Mike, next slide, please. So the Community Health Law Project is a nonprofit legal services organization, and we provide legal and advocacy services to low-income individuals with disabilities. We have been in existence for over 40 years. We cover most counties around the state, and most of our clientele are individuals with mental health disabilities. In addition to that population, we assist individuals with developmental disabilities, the blind and visually impaired, those with HIV/AIDS, individuals who are homebound. And in terms of the cases that we handle, it really runs the gamut of all types of civil cases. Our priority is to ensure that individuals with disabilities can live independently and thrive in the community. So really, those are the issues that we tackle to allow that to happen. So involving housing issues, evictions, habitability, entitlements, including general assistance, emergency assistance, Social Security, foreclosure matters, home health issues. We also handle family law issues such as domestic violence and child support, as well as consumer issues if your income is being furnished. And again, we have over 50 staff around the state covering most counties. Next slide, please, Mike. Thank you. So this is just information for the public that we have distributed in the last couple of weeks. We do have an FAQ, a flyer that is also on our website, www.chlp.org. It's just a one-page, very general FAQ about stimulus payments. Obviously, we're going to be going into more detail today. And then the second flyer is really meant to be a flyer so you can get in touch with us. It's our contact information. We also have a list of all of our offices on our website. And in terms of the pandemic, we're really, obviously, the main issues are, as we're going to speak today, about stimulus payments, housing, including rent issues and evictions. I know people are dealing with that right now, unemployment benefits, health insurance, wills, powers of attorney, advance directives. And we do anticipate family matters, such as domestic violence, that may be on the rise right now. So we do encourage you to go on our website and for a list of our offices, and please feel free to contact us. And without further ado, I am going to introduce my staff. Mike, next slide, please.
Oh. Sorry about that. Here.
Oh, I guess that's not me.
No, that's okay. Here you go.
I'm done with my introduction, and I think I'm going to hand it over to Lisette to introduce the rest of the presentation.
And Erica, we just had a question from the chat about what counties CHLP does not cover?
Okay, so that's a very, very good question, and it's a complicated one because we have contracts, depending on the contract that we're dealing with, depending on the population that we serve, that will guide what county we serve, what counties we serve. In terms of the mental health population, most counties are served, some are not. For example, Bay County, we do not serve for mental health issues. Middlesex County, we do not serve because there's another agency in that county that serves that population. For DDD services, we do serve all 21 counties for other services as well. We also have an aging contract, and that's primarily just 2 counties because we only get funding for 2 counties. So it really depends on what contract the individual falls under. And if you want some specific information about that, you can always reach out directly to me or contact our office for more guidance on that.
Great, thank you very much. So Mike, our facilitator, is going to tell you about how you can participate and ways that you can give us questions and ask, provide information that you want us to talk about. So go ahead, Mike.
Great, thanks, Lisette. Couple ways you can do this. As I mentioned when we first came on, there is the chat box, so you are certainly welcome to type your questions in there. If you're on the computer participating today, that's probably an easy way to participate. If you're on the phone, that's probably not going to work as well for you, but we do have an opportunity if you are either on the computer or on the phone. If you'd like to participate auditorily, you can certainly turn your microphone on. The individuals who are connected through the computer right now will have an option along their toolbar to raise their hand, and I'll see that pop up, and then I can call you out to turn your microphone on, and instead of having to type it in the chat box. For the people on the phone, it's a little more difficult, but what I would suggest is when you have one of those pause moments where you don't hear anybody talking, time it properly and jump in and ask your question. And if 2 people start to talk at once, I'll try to navigate that, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So there are multiple ways to participate. We'll try to get to as many of the questions as we can as we go through, but please keep adding them to the chat box, and we'll use these questions as we move forward with future events also. So please feel free.
Yes, just to be clear, the questions that we will be addressing today are those that are related to the topic that we have planned for today. But other questions we will look at in terms of future town halls, and we'll give you the opportunity at the end or anytime that you want to, if you have suggestions that you want to put into the chat box about what other topics you would like us to cover. That will help us to plan and to decide who we would like to partner with on those issues. So please feel free to offer that information. But in terms of the questions today, we're really going to try to stick with the topic at hand because we have our advocates and attorneys who are available to try and answer your questions. So I'm going to present them now. We have from the Community Health Law Project, we have Rachel Ianieri, who's a senior attorney, and Dan Farrell, who's a supervising advocate. And from Disability Rights New Jersey, we have Rebecca Shore, who's our director of legal advocacy, and Nicole Fowler, who's the coordinator for our representative Payee program. So they'll each speak about one aspect of stimulus payments and take your questions. So please go ahead. Our first speaker will be Rachel.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for having us. Today we're going to talk about, as you said, the stimulus. Where is my money? Am I entitled to it? How do I get it? How does it affect other benefits I might get? So I'm going to be talking about who's entitled to receive the stimulus payment. So the stimulus payment, which is also called the economic impact payment, is being provided by the IRS and paid through the Treasury Department. This is not a payment that's coming from Social Security, and we're going to talk about a little bit more how it might affect Social Security benefits. but I know a lot of people who get SSI, SSD, survivor benefits are trying to contact Social Security to find out where their money is. Social Security is not the one who is making these payments. It is the Treasury Department. It's also important when you get your payments, it's going to be coming from the Treasury Department. So as of May 8th, the federal government has paid out 130 million stimulus payments, 3.2 million of them in New Jersey. And the rest of the people who are going to be eligible should be coming soon. And we're going to talk about a little bit more about time frames and things like that. But who is eligible? So anybody who is a U.S. citizen or a resident alien who has a valid Social Security number and who has an adjusted gross income under certain amounts of $75,000 for an individual, $112,500 for a head of household, $150,000 for a married couple filing jointly, and who is not claimed as a dependent would be eligible for that $1,200. Now, people who have adjusted gross incomes above those levels, up to $99,000 for an individual, $136,500 for a head of household, or $198,000 for a married couple, would still be eligible for some stimulus money. However, the amount is going to be reduced. In addition, children who are 16 or under at the end of 2019 are going to be eligible for a $500 payment. And there is no limit to the amount of children that parents can get benefits for. One of the things that's very important to remember about this is it's a 2019 tax return. So if you just had a baby in 2020, that is not going to count. But these are 2019. So if you have a child who's 16 or under at the end of 2019, they might be eligible for this $500 benefit. Now, again, one of the big ones that is going to make someone ineligible is, again, if they do not have a Social Security number, if they're above the income limit, or they are claimed as a dependent. And people who are adults who are claimed as a dependent, they can't get the $1,200 stimulus for themselves, and their parents, whoever is claiming them as a dependent, cannot get the $500 for them as a child if, again, they are over the age of 16. The two other categories of people who now might be getting payments but should not be, people who are deceased. So we're going to talk about how how the IRS determines who's eligible for this. One of the ways is based on a 2018 tax return. Unfortunately, some people who filed 2018 returns are no longer with us, and their surviving spouse or somebody else may be receiving a payment for them. The IRS has just issued some addresses on their website about where to return the money. You are not eligible to keep that money. The other group of people are people who are currently incarcerated, and they're using Social Security rules as over 30 days. So people who are currently incarcerated and will be incarcerated for more than 30 days are not going to be eligible for this, and they should be returning those payments as well. So those are the broad categories of people who should be eligible. And I'm going to turn over to Dan Farrell to talk a little bit more about how, when people do get their money, how it's going to affect the benefits that they have.
Thanks, Rachel. And yes, that's the big question. In fact, I think I saw one earlier. What's the impact going to be on my Social Security? There is no impact on federal means-tested benefits like Medicaid, SNAP or food stamps, SSI, or federal subsidized housing. So the income that you get from the earned income payment, the stimulus payment, will not affect any of these federal programs. It's not counted as income. It's not counted as a resource either until 12 months after you've received it. So I'm assuming most people will have the $1,200 spent down within 12 months. But if not, just be aware that it will be a resource after 1 year. One of the issues that the impact on the benefits of the people, is it subject to garnishment? It's not subject to garnishment unless you have past due child support. If you have past due child support, then the IRS will intercept the payment to pay the person to whom you owe the child support. it's protected from any kind of federal or state debt offset, but it's not protected from any offset that your bank might have. So if your account, we've been seeing issues where someone had an account in 2018 when they filed taxes, that account has been overdrawn, and that there are bank fees attached to that account. If the stimulus payment goes into that account, the bank is entitled through their bank offset rules to reclaim whatever the fees were associated with that account. If the account is closed, then the bank is supposed to return the check to the IRS, and the IRS will then issue a paper check. And that's all I have on impact on benefits and garnishment. We'll mention, well, we'll cover that later.
Great. We do have a question and a comment in the chat, so I'm just going to ask those because I think they were more for Rachel. There's a question from Charity Garcia. Is this stimulus payment the one received, or will there be another one sent? And then a comment from Julia Simcoe regarding deceased individuals. When I got my stimulus payment in the mail, there was a box on the envelope to be checked for deceased individuals.
So the information that we're talking about now are the stimulus payments that have been going out since April and will continue to be going out throughout the summer. There are more conversations going on in Congress as to whether more stimulus payments will be made in the future, but what the rules regarding those would be and who would be eligible for those are still unclear. So what we're talking about right now are for the payments that, again, 130 million people already have received, but presumably a lot of people on this call may not have gotten yet. So to ensure that when you're waiting for your money, if you're one of these people who should be eligible, that's what we're going to be talking about. As far as people who are deceased, there was some original discussions about whether or not people would be eligible to keep the money. You know, this getting the money out happened very quickly, and the federal government isn't usually very good at just turning on a dime and getting things out very quickly. So a lot of what's been happening is kind of acting, and then when they realize that there are some issues, making additional guidances. So it's really important for people to keep up to date, to check websites, to keep up about what the current rules are. And with people who are deceased, they just came out with current rules, again, pointing where people should be sending the money back to because they should not be entitled to. No.
And if I could just tag on one thing that I know you probably meant to mention it, but for individuals who are receiving SSI benefits and they're receiving the SSI benefits through a direct express, today is the day that those payments are supposed to be going out to SSI folks who get their benefits on direct express. So you should, if you are getting SSI or know somebody who's getting SSI and they get direct express, they should check with the direct express card to see whether their $1,200 has gone. And they may have a surprise waiting for them today, but they're starting as of today to pay those folks.
Great. Dan, that was very timely because we had a question from Sandy Newman that was specifically about people who have direct express accounts. So I think you answered that. And if there are any other questions about that, please feel free to put them in the chat.
I do want to mention that, I'm sorry, with the direct express, there are, and I believe someone else can be talking about this more, if there are dependents, then there was some talk about whether or not if you're filing for your dependents under the other portals, whether you get your checks under the direct express. But as Dan said, if you just yourself and you get SSI, they should be coming on the direct express.
Okay.
And just one more thing, I know I'm biting into other people's time, but if you're wondering where your check is, you can go on irs.gov and hit the Get My Payment portal, and it will walk you through the information you need to provide them in order for them to see when and where your check is coming. If it's already sent out or when it's due to come out, it will tell you that.
Great. There's just a request, Rachel, if you don't mind, from Nicole Prisco, if you could enter the income limits in the chat, because there was a lot of numbers to follow. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next topic. You can always keep on sending questions about things that have been discussed, and we'll field all the questions, but we're going to move to the next speaker, which is about getting your economic stimulus payment, and Rebecca Shore is going to be covering that topic.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Shore. I'm the Director of Legal Advocacy at Disability Rights New Jersey. And as Lisette said, I'm going to talk about how to get your economic stimulus payment if you haven't already gotten it. The way most people are going to get their economic impact payment, it shouldn't be economic stimulus, it should be economic impact payment, is it's going to go directly into a bank account. And the reason for that is the government only has whatever information it has. So for people who pay taxes, they have the tax information and they have the bank account information for people who file tax returns and were expecting to get a refund. And so they know where to send those people money. They know who they are, they know if they have dependents, and so they know if they're married, they can figure out how much money to send somebody who filed taxes. For somebody who receives SSI or SSDI, the government has generally speaking, has your direct deposit information and will direct deposit the payment right into the bank. What the government doesn't know is whether you have dependents or not. So you will get the $1,200 payment for yourself. You probably will not get, if you have not filed taxes and your source of income is SSI or SSDI, you will not get the dependent payment without taking further steps. If you're somebody who doesn't file taxes and you don't get SSI or SSDI, then there's a tool on the IRS website that you could go to. I'm going to cut and paste it right now. This is a place where you can go to give the government your information so that the government knows who you are, who's in your family, what your bank account information is, so that they can send you your stimulus payment. When you click on that site, you're looking specifically for the box that says non-filers, enter payment here, or enter payment information here. And that will that's the only place on the internet where you should enter your information if you're looking for your stimulus payment. If the government knows where to find you, it has your address because you filed taxes or for some other reason, but it doesn't have your bank account information, you might get your payment by mail. As Mike was saying, or I think, and Rachel was saying, if you file a tax return, the government knows if you have dependents and you'll get your dependent payments. People who receive SSI or SSDI had an opportunity, very short opportunity, to go onto the IRS website and let the government know if you had dependents. Unfortunately, the government very quickly put a deadline on that. And at this point, if you have SSI or SSDI and you have a dependent or more than one dependent, what you need to do is file a tax return next year, and you should get you're gonna get your dependent payment, but it will be delayed, it will be late. A lot of you may be wondering, what should I do if I didn't get my economic impact payment? And I'm gonna put another link in the chat box. And this is a place that you could go to check on the status of your payment. It's irs.gov coronavirus/getmypayment. And there you can check to see what the status of your payment is. It's very important that if you go there, you enter your information exactly as it appears either on your tax return or any other, or however that the Social Security Administration has your information. Depending on your source of income, you want to make sure that it matches, because it's a finicky system. And so if you normally write out street and you abbreviate street ST, it might not know that that's the address. It's picky. What are some reasons people may not have gotten the economic impact payment? One is if you're a dependent. If you're a dependent, you're not entitled to get your economic impact payment yourself. whoever declared you on their taxes as a dependent is going to get that payment for you. If the federal government doesn't have your information, for example, if you're not required to file taxes because your income is so low that you're not required to file, you have to go to the IRS website, to the first link that I posted. You have to put in your information, and that's how you'll get your stimulus payment. If you are required to file taxes, you make enough money that you need to file taxes, but you haven't filed in 2018 or 2019, then the way to get payment is to file your at least your 2019 tax return. Another reason why payments could be delayed is if you filed your income taxes using a tax preparation service and they gave you an advance loan on your income tax refund, then what would have happened to your refund is that it would have gone into the tax preparer's bank account instead of into your bank account. If that happens, it will eventually make its way back to the government and you'll get issued a check, a paper check in the mail. You might not get your payment immediately if you close the bank account where your tax refund was sent, or whatever bank account that the government has on file for you, or if you moved. In those instances, you're supposed to eventually get the benefits when you get when the IRS tracks you down, or you could go onto the non-filers tool and see if you can update your information there. The last category I'm going to mention is if you receive SSI or SSDI and you have a representative payee, you would not have gotten the funds directly. The representative payee will have gotten those funds. And I'm going to turn it over now to Nicole Fowler to talk a little bit about representative payees.
Excuse me 1 second, Nicole, before you say something, I just wanted to say one more thing that Rebecca had mentioned. For the people who get SSI and SSD for the dependents, it is too late to enter that information for the non-filer portal if you got your benefits before January of 2020. However, if you just started getting your benefits in January or February, you still have to file for a non-filer. That's not going to be the same as people who get SSI. And you can still enter your dependent information because you have to actually file on that non-filer portal that Rebecca had put up there. So you can still claim dependents if you started getting benefits in January, February, March, April of 2020. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. So Nicole is going to talk about beneficiaries who have representative payees and how their checks are being handled. Go ahead,
Thanks, Lisa.
Nicole.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm the coordinator of the Representative Payee program at Disability Rights New Jersey. And I'm going to talk about how receiving the stimulus checks might look a little bit different for beneficiaries of Social Security who have a representative payee. So stimulus checks may or may not be deposited into an account managed by a payee. As Rebecca just talked about, for beneficiaries who filed a tax return in 2018 or 2019, their stimulus checks will be deposited into the account that the tax return was deposited into, or mailed to the address that the tax return was mailed to. But for beneficiaries who did not file a tax return, the IRS is planning to use information from Social Security to generate your stimulus check. So in that case, beneficiaries with representative payees, their stimulus checks will be going into an account managed by their payee. So what happens then? Even if a payee receives these funds, they belong entirely to the beneficiary. A payee only has the authority and obligation to manage Social Security benefits. They do not have the authority or obligation to manage other sources of income, such as wages, pensions, and stimulus checks would fall under this as well. They do not have the obligation or the authority to manage the stimulus checks. But it's important to know that, as we've already talked about, these funds are not considered income. They're not considered a resource for 12 months. So the payee cannot take these funds towards a beneficiary's cost of care. Again, they are entirely the beneficiary's funds to use as they wish. So the payee and the beneficiary should have a discussion on what works best for that individual beneficiary. But ultimately, it is the beneficiary's decision as to how they want to use these funds. If a beneficiary wants to use these funds independently, the payee must turn over the funds to them. If a beneficiary asks the payee for assistance in saving the funds or using the funds for a specific need or a want, the payee can provide that assistance to the beneficiary outside of the role of representative payee. And we do often see with the with the permission of a beneficiary, we often see payees assisting in the management of wages, pension, other sources of income. But in which case the payee would then have to document exactly how these funds are being spent. So this would also apply for the stimulus check. If a beneficiary and a payee decide that the payee is going to assist, the payee must document exactly how these funds are being dispersed. And again, if a payee is assisting in the management of these funds, they should also ensure these funds are being spent down by the 12-month deadline, because at which point they could jeopardize their eligibility for these benefits. And lastly, I just want to address, what if a beneficiary alleges that a payee is misusing their stimulus funds? Because these funds are not a Social Security benefit, Social Security does not have the authority to investigate or determine that these funds have been misused. However, beneficiaries should absolutely still report the allegation of misuse to Social Security, because if Social Security receives an allegation that the payee did not use these funds on behalf of the beneficiary, Social Security can then decide to review the payee and the payee's use of the Social Security benefits, and potentially determine the payee is no longer suitable to serve as a payee. So yes, absolutely, if you allege that a payee is misusing the funds, you absolutely should report that to Social Security. And that's all I have on representative payees receiving the benefits. So I guess we'll move into the chat box and answer some more questions.
Nicole, we have some questions specific to your topic, so I'll read those. The question from Julia Sico, is the representative payee someone who filed someone else's taxes for them?
No, a payee is only managing Social Security benefits for a beneficiary who is unable to manage them themselves. So they're not filing taxes on behalf of any individual.
Okay, and Heather had a question. What can a person do, or who can they contact if the impact statement goes to a representative payee and or tax agency they gave a return on a prepaid card and is not being released to the person?
So that's a very good question. It is the payee's obligation to turn over these funds to a beneficiary, because the payee does not have the authority to keep these funds or use these funds. So again, you should report this to Social Security, because they can review the payee's use of the beneficiary's Social Security benefits. I think we're still exploring where to report allegations of misuse of the stimulus checks, but definitely for beneficiaries with representative payees, they should report any concerns with the payee to Social Security.
Regarding the prepaid cards for tax agencies, again, I think that was one of those issues that the IRS didn't realize would be such a problem until a bunch of people said, "Where's my money?" And they saw on the, get my payment, a bank account information that they didn't recognize. So again, the IRS is supposed to try to send it out to a bank account if that's what's on file. If that bank account is closed, or if that tax preparer has now closed that account, it'll be sent back to the IRS and it'll be sent to you in a check. The Treasury Department is going to try again to send you the money. But again, if it is going to H&R Block or any of those type of places, usually those accounts are kicking it back, from what I understand, to the IRS, so that the person who helped you at H&R Block isn't keeping your money.
I wanted to say another couple of words about people who have representative payees and who might have not gotten the funds from their representative payee. Unless you ask for the funds from the representative payee, there's nothing in the Social Security law that requires the representative payee to turn over the money. So my recommendation would be to write a letter or an email, and writing is always better when you are eventually going to need to prove something. Write a letter or an email to the representative payee telling the representative payee what you want to have done with the money. It's your money, and you can tell the representative payee what you want to have happen with it. And some things that you could choose to do, it's up to you. You can ask the representative payee to manage the funds for you. But as Nicole said, that they're not Social Security funds. And so it's not a Social Security obligation for them to manage the funds for you. You can ask the representative payee to turn over the funds to you in a lump sum. As we said before, it doesn't, the payment doesn't count as income for SSI or for Medicaid, and it doesn't count as a resource for 12 months. So if you get a lump sum, you want to be sure and spend it down within 12 months of when the representative payee received it. You can also ask the representative payee to put the funds in a special needs account for you. But whatever you do it in writing and keep a copy of whatever you sent to the representative payee. And if you could get any kind of receipt that shows that you gave them that money, I'm sorry, that you gave them that letter, that's very helpful. So if you send it by mail, send it by some kind of mail that you can trace, like registered mail or certified mail. And emails are good because you have a receipt that shows that the recipient got the email. If the representative payee doesn't do what you asked, at that point, as Nicole said, you can report it to the Social Security Administration. They won't be able to get back that money for you just by deducting it from the representative payee or something like that, but they will investigate the representative payee if they think that the representative payee is doing something wrong generally in the management of your money. But you may have other ways of dealing with a representative payee who essentially has stolen your money. So if you write that kind of a letter to the representative payee and you don't get your money, I would recommend at that point that you contact either Disability Rights New Jersey or another law office that might be able to help you with that.
There were a few other things I just wanted to mention. So when the payment is sent, whether that's electronically or by a check, the IRS is going to send a follow-up letter 15 days later to the address on file. This is really important because, and I think Rebecca was going to talk a little bit about scams. This is really important because there are so many people trying to take people's money. So the IRS wants to make sure that you did in fact get this payment you were supposed to get. There is going to be a phone number, but right now there is no live people to answer the phone number, but you can call and let them know that there is a problem. One of the other questions I saw was if you get the wrong amount of money. So if you file taxes, you had a dependent on there, you only got your money. The IRS, from what I understand, is only sending one payment per person. Now, again, that doesn't mean they're not going to possibly try to send it more than once. But if you already got your stimulus, you are not now going to get an additional check or deposit for any amount that possibly you should have gotten. So their idea is that, again, this is a payment that you can file your taxes next year in 2021 for the 2020 year. And hopefully if you should have gotten a dependent benefit and you didn't, that'll get made up. Again, with the dependents, there's always going to be possible issues of parents who are filing separately and each one of them try to claim a dependent. You know, that kid can't get claimed twice. So there's always going to be issues. And that's partially why DRNJ, Community Health Law Project, other organizations are there to help with those one-on-one individual quirky situations that come up of where is my money? I was told I was supposed to have it and now I don't have it.
So I just,
yeah.
I just want to backtrack just for a minute. And we spent a lot of time talking about Social Security beneficiaries and SSI beneficiaries and people who filed taxes in 2018 and 2019 as people who are going to be getting the benefits and how they're getting them, what manner they're going to get them. But I think it's really, really most important for people to know that most everybody is eligible for one of these payments. And you don't have to have filed taxes. You don't have to be getting Social Security. You don't have to be getting SSI. People who are on general assistance, many people are, they're entitled to apply. They have to go, though, on the irs.gov website that was described earlier. People who are on TANF benefits don't file taxes, but they're eligible for this payment. These earned income payments will not affect your eligibility for general assistance and will not affect your eligibility for TANF, but you have to proactively apply in order to receive it. It's not going to automatically come to you like it is for people on Social Security and SSI. And I just wanted to make that clear to the group.
And one of the things on that non-filer portal that needs to be entered is an email address and a phone number. And we know a lot of the clients that we work with have an email address they haven't used in 4 years, don't have their password, or never had an email address. It is very easy to set up a Gmail account or some other email address to use. And that is going to be necessary to file that non-filer tax return. The system is going to send an email to that email address to verify. Same thing with the phone number. But again, if you don't have a phone, and some people don't have phones, we could use other people's phone numbers. It doesn't, if a caseworker is able to help, but those two things are going to be necessary. But again, it's a very simple process. And as Dan said, it is necessary for people who do not have income and may not know that they're eligible for this because they're thinking it is something for people who lost their job or something like that. This money is supposed to be out there to help the economy keep spinning until we can all get back to work. And people who are lowest income are usually going to spend the money quickest. So we really wanted to get it in everybody's hands who is eligible for it.
Thank you. We do have a couple of questions related to Representative Payee, so I'll ask that, and then we should probably open the floor if we want to give people the opportunity to ask questions directly. There's a question from Beatrice Brandt. If the representative payee has not received funds for an individual, how do they check to see status of the impact payment? Do they use the same link provided above in the chat box? And I'll ask the other question too. While I have it, there's a, lost it now, but there was a question about what if somebody, somebody was the representative payee for an individual and they no longer are, and that person doesn't have a new payee. So what happens with the check in that situation?
So it really all depends on the individual circumstances. Did they file a tax return in 2018 or 2019? Because regardless if they have a representative payee or not and they filed a tax return, the economic impact payment will be received wherever the tax return is received. Let's see, if the payee has not received funds for an individual, how do they check to see the status of the impact payment? That's a good question. I don't know that the payee would have, would be able to go on the IRS website and check the status of a payment. Even if a beneficiary has a payee, they can check the status of the payment themselves. The payee does not have to do it for them.
Correct, and that's the answer. The person who's expecting the check has to go on to the portal and enter their information, and it will let them know when the check was sent to the representative payee. The payee, I guess, could do it with the person, but that's the only way they'll be able to find out.
Yeah, and at that point, if the individual has gone on and they've seen that their check has been mailed out, they haven't received it and it's gone to the payee, at that point, the beneficiary would want to speak with the payee and have that discussion on if they want it completely turned over to the beneficiary or if they want the payee's assistance. And as Rebecca said, it's great to do that in writing because then you have documentation of that request.
And if the payee receives a stimulus payment for someone for whom they're no longer a payee, it's their responsibility to return that to the IRS.
Correct.
Everybody has until the end. I mean, this is essentially a tax credit for next year's taxes. So you have until the end of this calendar year to file for the stimulus payment through the various portals that are available on the website.
We have one more question and then we will open it up. Can somebody who doesn't have an address receive a stimulus payment?
Yes. I mean, I've helped homeless people with the stimulus payment applications, and they've used a shelter as an address.
Or a P.O. box.
Or a P.O. box. You just have to verify. You have to have a social security number. You have to be able to have a phone and an email address so you can go through the protocols that the website requires for you. But yes, if you have some sort of address, a friend's address, a family member's address, a shelter address, a P.O. box, I mean, the check has to go somewhere. I'm assuming that the person doesn't have a bank account. If they do have a bank account, then it's going to go directly into the bank account.
Right. Right.
Thank you. I'm sorry, one of the questions that just came in was a disabled child who collects SSD, who doesn't file taxes, is claimed as a dependent by parents ineligible. Yes, unfortunately, again, the reason that I set out what I did to begin with is if you are claimed on someone else's taxes, you are not eligible for this payment for yourself of that $1,200. And only children who are 16 or under at the end of 2019 can get that $500. So there is unfortunately going to be a group of people who are claimed as dependents on someone else's taxes, whether they're disabled or not, who nobody is going to get a payment for. That's unfortunate. And again, 17-year-olds, no one's going to get a payment for. So unfortunately, those two groups are going to be excluded, even if they have a social security number or their income is low enough.
Great. Thank you all very much. That was incredibly informative. We would like to give our participants a chance to ask questions to you directly or give us their comments. So Mike, if you want to let people know how they can do that, please do.
Sure. We could always go back to the chat box, which people are doing a great job of getting their questions out in there. If you're joining us on the phone and you would like to unmute yourself and ask your question, you're able to do that now too.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, I could talk a little bit about scams you might see.
Please do.
Okay. People want your money. And people come up with all sorts of devious ways to get your money. So this is not a full list of every trick out there that somebody could use to get your stimulus payment. But if you get an email from anyone claiming to be the IRS, for example, be very careful. Don't click any links in any email that you receive unless you're 100% certain that it's from the IRS. I don't think that the IRS is going to do much, even though they want you to have an email address. I would be shocked if the IRS starts emailing people. Another scam is people who tell you that they can help speed up your economic impact payment for you. Nobody can do that for you. So if they tell you that that's what they're going to do, they're not telling you the truth. The IRS isn't going to call you up on the phone and ask you to verify your bank account number, your email address, your social media information, anything else like that. So if you get a phone call from anybody asking you for personal information, I wouldn't give it. I would be very suspicious, and I don't think that the IRS is going to contact people that way. If somebody says that they'll enter your information on the portal for you to get information about your benefits on the IRS portal, and they're a stranger, don't give them your information to have them put it in the computer. They're just taking your information. You could put your information in yourself, or go to somebody that you trust and that you know is going to actually put in the information for your benefit, not for their own. Never sign a check over to a stranger. So if you get a paper check and somebody wants you to sign it over to them for some reason, there's no reason to do that. Also, it may seem counterintuitive, but if somebody wants to deposit money into your bank account, don't let them do it. That's a scam too, and that ends up taking money out of your account. If you get something that looks like a check in the mail and that says, call this number in order to get the real check or in order for us to make this check payable, that's also a scam. That's a way for people to try to get information from you. When you get your money, you're going to get your money. You don't have to call any number to make it work.
Great. Thank you very much, Rebecca. We are coming to the end of our time, but if anybody has a question or comment they would like to make, you can unmute yourself, or you can still use the chat box. We thank you all very much for your participation. That was very great discussion and lots of good questions and great presentations. So thank you all. And we want to continue to hold these town halls, and we would love to hear from you about any topics that you would like us to cover. We have a few possible topics that have come up from the last conversation in quarantine that we did, and you can see them there on the screen now. They include other financial issues, navigating benefit systems, including food stamps and general assistance, boarding homes, residents' rights and the owners' rights and responsibility, psychiatric hospital, and other facilities. So those are just some suggested topics that, as I said, came up in our last town hall, but we really would love to hear from you because the whole reason for us doing this is to listen to your concerns and to try to give you the most useful information that we can. So please take part and help us to plan the future ones. We haven't announced a date for the next one yet. We want to kind of step back and review this one and decide about, you know, when the next one should happen. And we're trying to do them at different times of days and on different days of the week to accommodate everybody's schedules. So again, if there are particular times that work better for you, let us know that. And we will try to do them at a number of different times and days. So thank you.
One other quick thing I wanted to mention. I did put this in the chat box. The IRS is sending out about 5 million checks a week. So if you are waiting for a paper check, again, you can go on to the Get My Payment. If it says when the scheduled mailing date is, anticipate it might take about 14 days to get to you. But those checks are going to be going out throughout the rest of the summer, 5 million checks a week. And as Dan mentioned, people still can file for the stimulus money. So if you talk to people, if you yourself has not filed and you're not in one of the groups that automatically is going to get it, make sure you file so you can get your money.
Great.
Hi, everybody. This is Gwen, the Executive Director of Disability Rights New Jersey. I just want to chime in real quick to obviously thank all our folks at DRNJ who have been working so hard on these town halls, but especially today to thank our legal colleagues from Community Health Law Project. We really appreciate the expertise you brought to this call. I can see from the depth of the questions and the presentation that this was just amazing amount of information. And we really appreciate the expertise that you brought to the call. So a special thanks to Community Health Law Project.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And I saw there were a few questions in the chat about how you can access this information and whether it will be recorded. So Mike is going to tell us about that.
Yeah, thanks, Lisette. Yeah, everyone, we've been recording the session, and what we'll do is we will follow up with an email to you. Everyone who registered for today, we'll follow up with an email either later today or tomorrow morning that will have the link to the recording, which will live on the YouTube channel for the ATAC program. So if you're on YouTube, you can search ATAC NJ and you'll see all the other recordings there, and then this one will live there also. So we'll send you an email with the recording link, the link to the slides, and then the 2 PDFs that we showed you the screenshots of that Erica described earlier. we'll attach them to the email as well. And I saw someone asked how you get notified of future events. Sandy, we will share the names from today with our the people who manage our mailing list, and we'll make sure you get updated on all the activities that we do from here on in. So thank you for your question. And
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you for your time, everybody.
What?
Yeah.